Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, privet, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10, at number 10, there behind me, look. Liz and Rishi are, which one? It's going to be Liz, isn't it? We all know it, I think. And we're all pretty unemotional about it, aren't we? Nobody really cares, but there we are. Nonetheless, today, it is Ken at 10, news in the property sector for SW16 and Norbury. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Here in Norbury, the weather is beautiful. It's that little bit cooler, blue skies, fluffy clouds, perfect weather for photography. Lots of photography going on, actually, new houses that we're going to take on as well. Been a bit quieter this week, but we have to expect that. It's the end of the holiday season, lots of people away, and it does quieten down a little bit. And as the market changes, and there is a definite substantive shift in opinions and attitudes, people are very scared. They're worried about what's going on. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about everything, rightly so as well. There's a lot to worry about, isn't there? That said, as far as the property market's concerned, it's business as usual so far. Sellers are cutting the asking price of homes by an average of 75k. This is according to the Daily Express. Well, you know what I think on that. If you look at that, the average is 75k. You've got to get from that, first of all, balance the fact that most people are advised by their estate agents to market higher than the price that their properties are really worth. And when there's more available stock, and there is a little bit more available stock generally coming into the market, so people have to correct their prices to the level they should have been at in the first place in order to get the traction. So I don't think there's anything to worry about, and I don't think it's about the percentages coming down in general. Although there's another article in the Telegraph saying that property prices can expect to hit if the Bank of England is serious about inflation. Well, with regards to the Bank of England and inflation, yes, it's their job to control inflation. The only weapon they have, their only job, really, their only remit, is to look at inflation and then raise or lower interest rates in order to keep us within that 2% target range, which we are nowhere near, more like 10%. But there are factors which are outside of control of that. I mean, for instance, the fuel crisis has nothing to, I mean, that massively impacts on inflation, but there's nothing that the bank or the government can do about that. You know, the supply is restricted. We've got the war in Ukraine restricting it further, and prices are rocketing on limited supply and have diverted supplies from other regions. So there's nothing really can be done about that. So how far they'll push interest rates in order to control, because the fine balancing act they've got is if you push interest rates up too high, then actually what happens is more businesses go bust. And inflation is a very blunt tool in terms of the amount of time it takes to filter through. For every rise they make, I understand that it takes about 2 years for that to have its full impact. But nonetheless, it's tough times, and it's going to get tougher this winter, no doubt. Households are going to get discounts on electricity bills if they cut their electric at peak times. Well, it's an interesting one, and something that I read in the paper this weekend that we talked about before with our friend Dave Vincent is that electric cars, everyone's going over to EVs, and there's going to come a point when the EVs can be used, that the grid can borrow back electricity from the EVs that are plugged in. And the idea being that what you would do is plug your EV in, and then you would say, right, I'm doing 50 miles tomorrow. So you maybe set it at 60, and then you charge your car as normal at low rates overnight. And then at peak times, your electricity supplier would go in and snatch back that electricity at premium rates, and you'd actually get paid for it. It's a great idea, and they reckon it would save several power stations in the process. It's a way of smoothing out the whole grid. Something that Dave talked about a long time ago. He's always quite good with foresight, and that's coming. That's coming. So that's an interesting one, but it won't help right now, will it? Fuel price and things. Unfortunately, that's another story entirely. So apart from that, we've got a lot of valuations coming in this week, which is always really encouraging, nice to see. So thank you to all of those of you that have actually called us and emailed us and asked for evaluation. It's lovely to see. We love to help people. We take a great pride in what we do, and we like having a chat with people and finding out whether actually now is the time to move for you, because it's not for everybody. It might be right for you, it might not, and that takes discussion and careful views about where the market is, where you want to be, where you see yourself, whether that move is feasible, is it financially affordable, does the whole thing work? And if you're in that kind of scenario, remember, valuations are free and without obligation. We can come around and have a chat, because for us, we're in this for the long game anyway. If you're not selling this month, that's okay. If you're not selling this year, that's okay. We establish contact, build a rapport, and hopefully you'll remember us in the longer term. That's what we're about. We're not about short-term wins. We're about long-term wins. Those wins are win-win. What I mean by that is we never want our clients going away thinking, oh, could we have got a bit money elsewhere, more money elsewhere? We want them to go away thinking, yeah, we used James Alexander. They had our back, whether selling or renting. We got the maximum that can be reasonably expected in the state of the market as it is right now. And we're confident that that's the case. And that's where we want to be. And that's where our clients hopefully think we are. One of the things I love is when people say, Ken, I really feel like you've got my back, because that's what we're about. So apart from that, looking forward to a good week. Hope you are too. Hope you had a lovely weekend. Getting towards that September mums market, which we love, when the mums come back from holiday, found the house a bit smaller than it seemed when they went away, and start to think about hunting, moving house to something bigger. And we've got a few properties coming up that we're releasing into that as well. And that's always nice to young families to come along and see what's available for their families and their aspirations and dreams, and hopefully get somewhere near them. Although in London now with prices, it's so tough for people, especially with rentals. You know, we're at a stage now with rentals where we take a property on for rent and we can only advertise it for so long before our phone lines get blocked. It's crazy, isn't it? Literally, we advertise for so long until we've got a queue of people that want to go and see it. And then we shut that one down, and then we're ready for the next one. And then only if nobody from that list wants it, we move on to the next to re-advertise the property, which is rare, because 9 times out of 10, we'll have 10 people chasing it and only one person can get it, sadly. So it's always a case of some people have to lose, and that's never nice, frankly. But it is because of what the government have done. Look, people say it's the landlord's fault that the market is where it is, but let me tell you, it's not. It's got nothing to do with landlords. In fact, it's government policy has driven the market this way. Why? First of all, by taxing landlords under Section 24. Secondly, by hitting landlords at every juncture that they possibly can. And thirdly, by the lack of a coherent housing policy in the UK. Do you know, we've had a minister every single year, a new housing minister every single year for the last 12 years, even longer, going back. And it goes to show what little regard they have for housing in general. What they need to do is get a hold of this. You know, housing targets, 300,000 a year was the target that they promised us. They've never hit that target. I don't think they've ever hit that target. And yes, it's arbitrary, and they've said, oh, we want to remove that target. Of course they do, because they can't get anywhere near it. But the reality is that during the Thatcher years, they allowed people to own their council homes, and I think that was a good thing to allow people on. But what they did with the money was they squandered it in other ways in other areas. They did not use it in housing. They should have used all of that tranche of money to go and build new social housing, and they've done none. And what we need is a big tranche of social housing building, and that's not going to happen anytime soon unless we have a massive and drastic change of policy. Now, failing that, what you need to do is encourage landlords into the sector rather than frightening them away. And by encouraging landlords into the sector, you increase supply. If you increase supply, then prices will slowly start to fall back to, inverted commas, some form of normality. But right now, massive undersupply on the rental side, not changing anytime soon. And it's tough out there for tenants. We are finding now that of our managed properties, and we manage hundreds, by the way, most of our tenants are trying to stay put. Most landlords require a rent increase just to keep up with the ever rising interest rates at the moment. So for many landlords, especially ones not on a fixed rate, the costs of owning that property have escalated rapidly, and they need to increase their rent in order to bridge that gap slightly. Quite often they haven't been greedy with those increases. Quite often they're just jumping them up slightly, but not to a full market rate, because they want to keep the tenants on the one hand, but on the other hand, they can't afford to carry on renting at the price they're renting at. So tough times out there for everybody, really. Hope you have a good week. We will be back tomorrow with another edition. Look after yourselves, and if you can, your family and friends. Till then, ciao.